Hi, good evening, and welcome to this Facebook Live session. Great to have you here on this Thursday evening with me, where tonight we're going to be looking at reframing and the whole idea about reframing, changing our experience of a particular situation. So if this is the first time that you've connected with us, welcome. Great to have you. I'm Nikki Seberini, the Mind Freedom Fighter, and my sole purpose is to help you free your minds, get your minds clear of any thoughts that create negativity or stress or anxiety, and see the world for what it is. Really get into a state where we can see reality and make friends with our reality. So just to give you an idea of how this works, it is a session where I'm just going to go through some ideas of reframing. You have an opportunity to share any thoughts that you have with me. If you have any questions, please go ahead. It's not going to be longer than half an hour. It may be quite a bit shorter. We'll see how we go, and we'll see if we get any interactions from you. But yeah, that's how it's going to play out tonight. So I posted a quote on social media a little bit earlier, and it went like this. It was Mary Engelbreit who said, "If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change the way you think about it." So does that seem possible? How does that sound for you? Just change the way you think about something, and then the experience changes. So just taking a deep breath and being in this moment, and really looking at what the past few weeks have been like, what the next few weeks, months, what the next year looks like. How do you feel about it? And do you think it's as simple as changing the way you think about it? Yes? No? Well, I'm just going to recap how the mind works. When I first started these Thursday Connects, I gave an explanation on the 5 fundamental truths. But let's just look at thought and how thought works. We have between 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts going through our mind every single day. And there is no way that you are aware of those 60 to 70,000 thoughts. You're aware of really a small percentage of those thoughts. In other words, you have thoughts going through your mind, and you're not even aware that you have these thoughts going through your mind. So when the thought comes through, it just passes. It does what thoughts are supposed to do: enters and exits. And of course, when we need to access our thoughts in order to think, to process, to create, to communicate, we use our thoughts. The rest of the time, and that's when we're in a focused mode, the rest of the time, our thoughts are coming and going. 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Now, the feeling that you have in your body, when you think something and you have a feeling in your body, it's because of that. You have thought something. So the felt experience comes from the thought. Now, as soon as you feel it in your body, it makes it feel real. So what am I trying to say is that you think something, you then feel it in your body, and it makes that thought seem real. It's the felt experience. Hi, Lorraine. Hi, Claire. Welcome, welcome. Fabulous to have you for this Thursday Connect. Just recapping on how thought works. So, as you think something, you feel something. So it makes perfect sense that the thoughts that you have in your mind impact your emotional world, impact your experience of the world. Now, I've spent a great deal of time talking about how you are not your thoughts, how thoughts come and go, and that we are the observer of the thought. Remember, I spoke about how Michael Singer spoke about he wrote The Untethered Soul, and he talks about us being the observer of the thought. The thought comes and the thought goes. Now, what about the actual thinking, the thoughts that you are using on a daily basis? very, very powerful. And the words that you are using when you communicate, very, very powerful in your experience of reality. That makes perfect sense, right? Okay. So if we all have the same experience of reality, I mean, that there is one reality, but we all have our own unique experience of reality, that is going to be based on the thoughts that we are having in the moment. So when it comes to reframing, we go straight to the source. What are we thinking? What words are we using to describe our experience? So 2 weeks ago, I spoke about a perspective shift. And we looked at, and the sound is not great, Lorraine said. I wonder why the sound is not great. Let me see, Lorraine, if I can increase the volume. Give me a second. Is that a little bit better? I hope so. Hello, hello. I hope the sound, I don't know, I seem to be having a few sound issues. Lorraine, let me know, yay or nay. So 2 weeks ago, I spoke about the perspective shift. And the perspective shift I use when we're dealing with other people, when we have an incident with another person, and it is our ability to use the lens of the other person. It is our ability to see something from another person's point of view. And when we are able to see it from, I'm glad it's better, that from another person's point of view, we have understanding of why that person says what they say, why that person does what they do. We are able to shift the perspective from our perspective, the way we see something, to moving the perspective and seeing it the way another person sees something. It creates an empathy, an understanding, and then all of a sudden, instead of being separate from that person because they think differently to me or because I don't like what they did or said, and now I have a connection. And it's not just a connection in that I'm understanding their point of view, but chemically my body starts releasing oxytocin, and that is the hormone that creates that connection, that bonding hormone. So that was the importance of perspective. And then last week I was talking about the unfolding of reality, that reality has been unfolding for the last 13.8 billion years when we had the Big Bang, and this is simply one moment in time. And we are not the creators of this reality. We are simply experiencing the reality. So there is an acceptance of what is. It's happening. This is what's unfolding. But the work that we focus on here during these Facebook Lives is how do we manage our experience? How do we change our experience? I always say we are 100% responsible for our experience. So that comes to the reframing. And the reframing is really just a simple way of changing the way we experience something. So we are looking at the words that we use. We have a situation that comes up for us. We don't like the situation that comes up. Can we look at the situation? Can we see it differently? Can we use different words in this reframing scenario? So maybe you want to, if you'd like to, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask questions. Also, if you'd like to share a reframing story, I'd love to hear a reframing story. I often share a story that I had experienced a number of years ago, and it explains the reframe quite well, where I was having a conversation with my one son, one breakfast. I was busy making breakfast for my family, and I was discussing something that happened the night before. I've started watching football with my family. I was very, very enthusiastic, and I wanted to show my sons that I knew exactly what I was talking about. I knew the players, I knew how the game was playing out. And so I started to have a discussion with my son, and I started to say, I heard the coach say this. And he paused and he looked at me and he said, well, that's not what the coach meant. And so I ignored that, and I came up with another comment. Well, the goalie said this. And again, he paused. He looked at me and he said, Mom, that's not what the goalie said. And he corrected me. It didn't stop me. I carried on chatting. I was animated. I was excited. I wanted to bond and show my knowledge and how good I was. And every time he would stop and he would interrupt me. And in the past, the default would be to become defensive. The default would be, well, I am the victim here. He never listens to me. He always interrupts me. I'm always wrong. That would be my experience. And the words that I would use to describe is, I'm a victim. I'm wrong. There's nothing I can say that'll impress them, and that will be my overall experience. But very, very quickly, I was able to shift this whole experience by reframing it. And there and then I actually said to him, I'm going to reframe it. I am so lucky that I have a teenage son who listens to every word that I say. And he looked up and he looked at me. And he smiled, and I smiled, and we both laughed. And that diffused the situation immediately. How, in a moment, could I change the experience? So, is reframing sugarcoating? Like, are we trying to take a negative situation and turn it into a positive situation? Not at all. Not at all. It's taking a situation exactly as it is, and it's just putting on a different lens. It's using different words to describe it, and in so doing, the felt experience in the body changes completely. Remember what I said? What you think is then felt in the body. Now, when my son says to me, keeps interrupting me, and I think in my mind, he never listens to me. He doesn't appreciate me. I am not loved. It is not fair. I could go on and on and on. The felt experience in my body will echo every single word, every single thought, every single belief. So I start to feel it. I start to feel sad, or I start to feel unloved, or I start to feel rejected, or whatever it is that I'm thinking, I then feel in my body, and without me even realizing it, I think it's true because I'm feeling it. And the worst part of it is I think that he is the cause of the feeling. So he says something or he does something. I then have a thought about it, right? The thought is there. The experience is there, which makes it feel real. So the thought that I'm having, it becomes a felt experience, which makes it feel real, and he caused it. So let's press pause. Is it possible that he caused it? If it came from my thinking was in response to what he said, did he cause the feeling inside of me? Or did I cause the feeling inside of me? Can only be me. It's my interpretation of what he said. It's what I'm thinking and believing about what he said that makes me feel something and then makes me think that it's his fault. It's not. It's simply my thinking. So the reframe gives us the opportunity there and then just to use different words, just to see the situation differently, and then the thought is different, and then the felt experience is different. So all of a sudden I'm going, my goodness, I have a teenage son. So he's not ignoring me. He's not in another world with his earphones in or on his phone. He's actually listening to every word that's coming out of my mouth. And when I say that, what am I thinking and believing? I've got a son who's interested in me. I've got a son who's listening to me. I am loved. I am cared for. And that becomes the felt experience. And that, for me, then becomes the truth. Do you see how important it is? Do you see how valuable it is to be able to really be very aware of changing our words or being aware of the words that we use? Our words are very, very powerful. Our words create the feeling, which create the overall experience, really, which governs our emotional experience in the world. So with reframing, it gives us the power to change the words that we're using, to put a new frame. Have you ever seen an old painting? Have you even been given an old painting and you take that painting and you put a brand new frame on it, and all of a sudden the painting changes completely? It's exactly the same. You're putting a new frame. Or sometimes you just focus on one part of that painting. You can just see that, and as soon as you zoom out and you see the bigger picture, the picture changes. So this is how we can find our way through the time of COVID-19. You know, we ask ourselves the question, we often go to the Byron Katie, is it true? And this is the precursor to is it true? You know, before we get to believing it, sometimes we can just automatically go into the reframe. We don't have to go into the is it true. So when I was having that interaction with my son, had I not been able to reframe it there and then he had gone off and we had had a fight and I was feeling disappointed and not appreciated and not loved, or whatever it is that I could have been feeling, I could have then sat down with the Byron Katies. My son doesn't listen to me, or my son doesn't hear what I'm saying. And I could have put that to the questions. Is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? How do I react when I believe that thought? Who would I be without that thought? But if I can, before I go into the believing of that thought that comes up, that judgment that comes up, if I can try and reframe it there and then, my experience changes. And so the more you do and you use this work, the easier it is, because the more conscious you are of what you're thinking, believing, the words that are coming out of your mouth. So I wanted to share one or two things with you, some tips with you. You know, you may, for example, with this COVID-19, you may have in your mind, and you may even be expressing it to people, I'm stuck at home. I'm stuck at home. Like, what are the words that you are using to describe this experience? I'm stuck at home. So a reframe for that would be, I'm safe at home. I am safe at home. I'm not stuck. Can you feel the difference? I want you to actually say it to yourself. I'm stuck at home. And again, there's a felt experience in the body. I'm stuck at home. I feel it in my chest. You know, I feel a closing. I feel an anxiety, a feeling of being almost imprisoned. And I want to run free. I'm safe at home. Well, there's a nurturing, wonderful, safe feeling about that. I feel held. I feel 100% all right. I'm stuck at home. I'm safe at home. I can't go out and work. I can stay at home and be creative about my work. I can't go to work. I can't go to work. I can't go out and be productive. I can stay at home and be creative and productive. So again, it's not sugarcoating. I'm not taking a reality and changing a reality. I spent a lot of time last week saying we cannot change our reality. It is unfolding. We are just experiencing this moment in time. But I certainly can change my experience of my reality. What I'm thinking and believing about my reality is on me and on me only. So that's what this is. It's not sugarcoating. It's simply changing the thought and the belief, and then the feeling, the words that go with it. I can't go out to a restaurant. I can stay home and see if I enjoy cooking. I can stay home and explore different recipes. I get to stay home and enjoy a delicious meal with my family. You know, there's so many ways of reframing it. So then there are powerful phrases. And I love to use this example of I have to. I have to cook lunch. I have to clean the floor. I have to sort out X, Y, and Z. And so the reframe there is I get to. I have to exercise this morning. I get to exercise this morning. Again, I really would love you to be aware of the sensation, the actual physical sensation in your body, because that's what makes it true for you. I have to exercise this morning. I get to exercise this morning. I have to make my family lunch. I get to make my family lunch. I have to pay an account. I get to pay an account. Are there lots of ways that we can change the wording that we use to change the experience? There's something even more powerful that you can add in, that is, I choose to. So I have to exercise. I get to exercise. I choose to exercise. Powerful. I have to cook. I get to cook. I choose to cook. I have to pay. I get to pay. I choose to pay. And be aware of all the changes, the physiological changes in the body, the emotional changes in the body, the energetic changes in the body, and how the reality in front of you, most importantly, changes, how that alters in front of you. So think of the words, as I said, I started off and I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Think of the words that you use to describe this experience, this COVID-19. What words are you using? Your vocabulary, your language, very, very important. I've heard people use words like, this is crazy. Now just think about the word, this is crazy. Is it? Is it crazy? And when you go out and you do your shopping and you say this is crazy, and it becomes this experience in your body that this experience is crazy, what does crazy mean? It's not right. What does crazy mean? Could it be dangerous? What else does crazy bring up in you? Out of control? Not normal? What? And so that becomes the entire experience. You're not comfortable in crazy. Is it crazy? Oh, it's quiet. Oh, it's different. Can you change this feeling of fear to curiosity? When you frame, you become curious about things. And I'm going to stress, and I'm going to keep stressing. We're not sugarcoating. I'm not taking away from the seriousness of the situation. I'm showing you how to change your experience of the situation. Only you can do it. If you choose to see it as crazy, as scary, as the end of the world, nothing will ever be the same again, our lives will never return to normal. If you choose to use those words, to believe those thoughts, the experience is going to be pretty scary for you. The future's not going to look very rosy. This moment is not a pleasant moment to sit in. But when you choose to change that, to not believe those thoughts and have stories about it, then you are in touch with this unfolding reality. That's when you get to meet reality as it is, not that story. So the curiosity, it's crazy, it's quiet. That's what it is. Crazy is just a judgment of something that's quiet. Surreal. I can't get my head around this. Think about those words. I can't get my head around this. So there's a feeling of confusion. There's a feeling of disbelief. There's a feeling of not coping. There's a feeling of not accepting. What are we telling our subconscious mind? I cannot accept the situation. This is not acceptable. And it's amazing what will come up for us when we say that. The reticular activation system, that part of the brain, that filter that I've spoken about before, will give you everything that you tell it. I can't get my head around it. My brain can't handle this. Telling your brain, very limited in what you can and what you can't handle it, what you can and can't handle. So I really want you to spend time tonight making you very, very aware of the words you use to describe yourself, to describe your experience, to describe other people around you. Because every word that comes out of your mouth becomes a felt experience and impacts your complete experience of of that reality. So be mindful of it. Going back to that quote, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change the way you think about it. Reframe it. Put a different frame. Before I say goodbye to all of you, do any of you have any questions? If you want to quickly put down if there are any questions. If not, that is fine. No questions. Fantastic. So just to recap, last week, reality is reality. We cannot change reality. Thoughts come, thoughts go. 60 to 70,000 thoughts. When we attach to a thought and we believe a thought, we breathe life into it. We have the feeling in our body and it becomes real. And we then project that onto our reality, and then that becomes our experience. We have different ways of changing the way we experience our reality. We don't go to the reality that we can't change. We go to the inner world, the mind, the projector of the reality. And so we go there and we can question what we're believing about something. We can use Byron Katie's 4 questions, or we can preempt that and we can use a perspective shift, and we can use a reframe. And all the while realizing that we are not our thoughts. We're simply thinking. Our mind is simply secreting thoughts. If we let the thought go, the thought will go. If we stop it, if we believe it, if we breathe life into it, we feel it, it becomes real. It becomes our reality. And lastly, it is not possible for another person or a situation to make us feel anything. It is never the outside world. It is simply what we're believing and thinking about that creates the feeling in us that we think is because of them, but it's because of what we are thinking and believing. And that, in a nutshell, is how it works. So I'm going to leave you with that. I thank you so much for joining me. As always, it is a privilege. Let me think. I'm taking part in a webinar tomorrow with Margaret Hirsch. It's to do with entrepreneurs. If you're interested, just have a look at my Facebook feeds. There's a link there. It is a free event. There are a few events coming up which I will post on Facebook. And for any of you who are looking to have a one-on-one session with me, where we really can start to identify thoughts that are creating stress, that are creating suffering, then contact me and we can set up a one-on-one online facilitation. So do take care. All my information is on my website. Look after yourself. Be kind. Be very, very awake to the words that come out of your mouth. They are powerful. Take care. Lovely to be with you.